Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Monday, July 1st, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. The right-wing conservative Supreme Court creates a king in the United States. They say Donald Trump cannot be prosecuted for his official acts as president. We'll examine what that means for Trump's current indictments and the upcoming election. During the Thursday debate, Donald Trump made a number of lies regarding the military. We'll be joined by retired Lieutenant General Russel Honoré to debunk those lies. Also, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul is leading the charge to keep DEI initiatives in law schools. He'll join us on today's show. Plus, those Fort Worth, Texas jailers who killed a Black inmate have been arrested. An Oklahoma State Superintendent says if teachers don't follow the curriculum to teach the Bible in schools, they could be fired. And Democrats continue to whine and complain and whip the bed over Joe Biden's performance in the debate. For me, it's real simple. Shut the hell up and get over it. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, this just in, President Joe Biden will be speaking to the nation tonight regarding today's Supreme Court ruling, a 6-3 decision that says Donald Trump has a lot of immunity from crimes he committed while in office. The nation's highest court decision is a major blow to prosecutors seeking to hold Donald Trump accountable for his attempts to overturn the 2020 election results. This, of course, fell along partisan lines. It has taken them 6 months to render this decision. And remember, Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned us about rulings that will be coming down. Well, now we have this. Joining me now is Ellie Mistel, Justice Correspondent for The Nation. Also, Adam Sir, staff writer with The Atlantic. Glad to have both of you here. Ellie, I want to start with you. How bad is this? For folks who don't understand the law, who they don't follow this stuff closely, how bad is this decision?
Significantly worse than even I imagined it would be. The crux here is that the president cannot be charged with the crime for acts he commits while he's in the White House. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people, a lot of apologists for the Supreme Court, a lot of centrist Republican-style people telling you that, whoa, they're unofficial acts that he could still be charged for. Yeah, but the key here is that the Supreme Court gave no guidance on the difference between official and unofficial acts. Arguably, everything the president does is going to be ruled as an official act. More importantly, the Supreme Court took away the ability to use evidence of what the president says and does as evidence against the president trying to say that his acts were in fact unofficial. Because if the president talks to the public or talks to his advisors about for instance, who he would like to assassinate, that communication is also official and thus can't be used to prosecute the president. So there's really no more bounds on what the president can do. It's elevated the office of the presidency to a situation where it is truly above the law. The president now has the ability to commit crimes. And again, I'll end there because that's one of the most important legal points. We're not talking about qualified immunity. We're not talking about immunity from civil liability. We're talking about crimes. We're talking about absolute immunity to commit crimes as long as you say committing that crime is part of my job as president of the United States.
This is Justice Sotomayor. Anthony, go to my iPad. She says the court effectively creates a law-free zone around the president, upsetting the status quo that has existed since the founding. This new official act's immunity now lies about like a loaded weapon for any president that wishes to place his own interest, his own political survival, or his own financial gain above the interests of the nation. The president of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way, under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold onto power, immune. Take a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune. Immune, immune, immune. Let the president violate the law. Let him exploit the trappings of his office or personal gain. Let him use his official power for evil ends, because if he knew that he may one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold and fearless as we would like him to be. That is the majority's message today. That right there sums it all up. This is literally saying this is like if you have a criminal informant and the FBI says you can commit any crime you want to because you're our informant, don't worry about it. We're going to get you out of it. You're never going to get arrested. You're never going to even be prosecuted.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there are no bounds around this ruling, which I think is the scariest part here, right? Like, you could have look, I thought Trump was going to win at least partially in this case. You could have constructed a ruling that said, well, there are some criminal acts that are clearly so against the nature of lawful proceeding, blah, 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 remanded it back down to the lower court for further review and instruction. Supreme Court did none of that. The Supreme Court, Roberts, writing for the majority in Supreme Court, did none of that, and he simply said that anything that is within his obvious constitutional powers, he has absolute immunity for, and anything largely, that could be arguably said to be an official use of power, well, he has presumptive immunity for that. That is an immunity that no other official in this country has, not a cop, not a meter maid, not a congressperson. Only the president is allowed to commit crime and never, ever be prosecuted for it. He's the only person in the country that's now allowed to do that.
So the notion of equal justice under law, that just goes out of the window.
Well, I mean, if you look at the history of the United States, we could talk a lot about the history of the Constitution, the text of the Constitution, the framers' intent. But one thing we know that they deliberately were trying not to do was create a king. And here you have the Supreme Court's originalists, the people who supposedly care the most about the history of the Constitution and the framers' intent, saying, actually, if Donald Trump wants to be a king, he can be a king. And I think what we need to understand about this ruling is that we're talking about it in the context of Trump trials, him possibly being prosecuted for what he did in the past. But this is really a forward-looking ruling. It's a ruling that says when Donald Trump is president again, he is allowed to go on the crime spree that we, the justices, the conservative justices of the Supreme Court, want him to go on. We will not stand in his way. He can commit any crime he feels like committing because he is the president. That's what this ruling says.
I guess all of these comments here during confirmation hearings don't mean anything. Go to my iPad. Watch this.
I believe that no one is above the law under our system, and that includes the president. The president is fully bound by the law, the Constitution, and statutes. I believe that no one is above the law.
That, of course, is John Roberts. Here's Samuel Alito.
It's above the law. No person in this country, no matter how high or powerful, is above the law. It has been a particular honor for me to serve on the Court of Appeals for these past 15 years.
Now, that's Sam Alito. Now, guess what? Here is Brett Kavanaugh.
No one's above the law in the United States. That's a foundational principle that I've talked about, coming from Federalist 69, coming from the structure of the Constitution. We're all equal before the law in the United States of America.
Well, we know all three of them were lying because they comprise 3 of the 6, Ellie.
And can I say, let me wrap together this opinion and the other opinions that we saw last week. When you look at the court's calling onto itself the power to rule over executive agencies, when you look at the court's decision in the Chevron case, and you link it up with today's case, what you have is the Supreme Court grabbing final authoritarian power over the rest of government, over both the presidency and Congress, right? Because the whole point of the Supreme Court not telling us what official acts and unofficial acts are, not explaining that difference to us, it means that only the Supreme Court knows. Only the Supreme Court can tell us which acts the president can never be prosecuted for and which acts he can be prosecuted for. So I hear a lot of liberals, a lot of left-leaning people out there today saying, oh, well, Joe Biden can now use this immunity. No, he can't. No, he can't. Because if Joe Biden tried to do the criminal things that Donald Trump did, all of a sudden the Supreme Court would say, oh, no, those were unofficial acts that Joe Biden took, whereas Donald Trump took official acts. See the difference? Because the Supreme Court is making up its own rules as it goes along, the Supreme Court is the only institution with real power in this country. And that is the through line from throughout the Supreme Court term, and certainly from the last week and a half. Only the Supreme Court has the power to tell Congress what it can and cannot do. Only the Supreme Court has the power to tell the EPA what regulations it can and cannot have. And now only the Supreme Court can decide what a president can and cannot do.
You know, Adam, Republicans love talking about progressive judges legislating from the bench. What we are seeing is, as Ellie said, an absolute power grab by these conservatives, and they are essentially they are doing the bidding of these moneyed interests, these rich interests. You talk about the Chevron case. You talk about now, even if a rule has been enacted, decades ago, they can go back and now sue. I mean, the chaos. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson talked about that. The chaos that we are about to see unleashed on this country, especially if Donald Trump wins, is going to be nothing that we've ever seen before.
I think we have to understand that this ruling and the level of power that the Supreme Court has asserted over the past few weeks, I think fundamentally changes the nature of our government. Whatever we were before those rulings, I think we're becoming something different now, and we will become something even more different if Donald Trump takes power after the November election. And I think fundamentally this is a 19th century worldview that the justices have, which is basically that elites really should not be held accountable for anything. There is a certain level of immunity that if you are a conservative elite, whether that's in business or in government, you simply are not bound by the law the way that other people are. And so I think it's important to go back to those statements that they said, well, nobody is above the law. They're actually creating classes of people who are above the law, and those people are all their political allies and friends.
Ellie, what people have to understand, again, Sotomayor talked about, hopefully a president doesn't go there. Let's be real clear. Donald Trump has already went there. He knows no bottom. There's no such thing as guardrails. Justice John Roberts, in his opinion, literally said that because the president is pursuing his duties to uphold the law, he can inquire about investigations of the Department of Justice when we've operated as if there's sort of this wall between the executive branch and the DOJ so they can maintain their independence. Roberts has just said, the hell with that. The president can call the attorney general, give me an update on this case, involving him, involving a family member, involving an administration official. That's what John Roberts is saying.
Yeah, he's obliterated the separation, the wall of separation that's supposed to exist between the president and the Justice Department. Democrats are well aware that Joe Biden does not call Merrick Garland up and tell Merrick Garland what to do. But that separation, that's out the window. If Trump gets back in, as he was already doing with Bill Barr and Jeff Sessions and the toilet bowl salesman man, whoever he puts in as Attorney General next, be it Stephen Miller or Mike Davis or some other kind of unreconstructed racist that Trump finds out of 1965 Alabama, it will be a situation where Trump can call that attorney general up every day and instruct him who to prosecute, who to let off. That's, again, the kind of massive power that the president has accrued to himself under this ruling. And to go back to Adam's point, when you talk about the class of elites that Adam is absolutely right that the Supreme Court is creating, let's also not forget the earlier decision last week where the Supreme Court made it okay for people to take bribes, as long as they're called gratuities or tips after the fact. It's completely legal now for public officials to take bribes so they can get paid for a decision that helps out their powerful friends, just like this one today. It's a all hands on deck reformation and reimagining of what America is supposed to be. And that reimagining is not one in line with democratic self-government principles. And of course, that has always been the point of the conservative takeover of government and especially the courts. They don't want democratic self-government principles because they understand that they might lose in a democratic self-government, right? They might lose free and fair elections. They lose all the time. They don't have the kind of political and demographic advantage that allows them to forever keep whites' power in a democratic system. So now they've gone to the courts to impose that power as a form of minoritarian rule on the rest of us and make sure all of their friends are, again, above the law and unable to be held accountable by it.
I want to add something to
go
what
ahead.
Ellie just said. I mean, when you talk about when Roberts obliterated DOJ independence with that sentence saying the president is allowed to have conversations about investigation, that is the president. Donald Trump is right now saying he's going to pursue retribution against his political enemies. So with Donald Trump going on the campaign trail saying, I'm your revenge, I'm your retribution, all that stuff, John Roberts, having seen that, decided to write into this decision, oh, and by the way, when Donald Trump becomes president again, he can prosecute whoever he wants, and he can decide that other people, his friends and cronies who commit crimes, those people will not be prosecuted. He could decide that those people will not be prosecuted. So it's really sort of a frightening window into what the Supreme Court thinks about both itself and about Donald Trump, which is that they want their guy to be president, and when he is president, to be unbound by the law or the Constitution in any sense, except to the extent that they decide they don't like something he's doing, which is to say that they're in charge now.
And Ellie, let's be clear. This decision today, this was not specific to the case that came up. They decided, and we saw this in their questions, they basically pushed aside the actual case that was in front of them, and they decided to create a standard for the future that had nothing to do with the case that was presented to them.
John Roberts went out of his way to avoid talking about the actions of January 6th, to avoid talking about what actually went down and the crimes that Donald Trump was actually accused of. It was actually only Amy Coney Barrett in a concurrence, in a footnote of a concurrence, that even brought up the fake electors. John Roberts, in the majority opinion, he stayed far away from the crimes that Trump was actually charged with. Now, again, constitutionally speaking, the Supreme Court is not supposed to issue advisory opinions. They're not law professors, right? They're not supposed to pontificate on what the law could be in some day, right? They're supposed to deal with, quote, cases and controversies, actual things that are happening, but this decision was completely removed, completely detethered from any actual wrestling with what Trump was charged on. And again, as Adam is saying, this is all by design. And if there's one thing that I want your viewers to come away with from Roland, is that nothing is happening by accident. Right? Nothing is happening because the justices are just trying their best and they ended up in this place. Like, this is all part of a plan, and that plan is being executed, and that plan is to make sure that whatever we do this November, it doesn't matter. Like that's the actual plan. And so when you have people, and I hate to go back to this like conversation, but when you have people kind of like pulling their hair out over the fact that Biden looked old and slow at the debate, and I agree, he looked old and slow at the debate, like, do you understand what's coming next? Do you understand what happens next? If you think Trump was willing to commit crimes the last time, what is he going to do now that he knows for a locked fact that they're not allowed to prosecute him after he leaves office? There's just, you have to have some perspective about the forces that we're dealing with here.
Adam, go ahead.
If he leaves office, the Supreme Court has said he can't be prosecuted if he refuses to leave office because, that might be part of his official duties. So really, I mean, that's what Sonia Sotomayor said in her dissenting opinion, that this is so broad that it essentially legalizes, someone deciding they want to be president for life. There is no universe in which that is what was intended by the founders. There's just no universe in which that's what they wanted to do when they devised a system of checks and balances. Whatever else you might say about them as wealthy slave owners who created a constitution that recognized property in man, they did not intend to say you can be president for life if you feel like it.
President Biden is going to speak on this 7:45 p.m. Eastern. And I got both of you here. I got to get your take on this. Go to my iPad. Listen, you've got Ellie, you got people like James Carville and other Democrats who are yelling and screaming, oh my God, Biden has to be replaced. These people are sitting here trying to float other candidates. They want to ignore Vice President Kamala Harris. And the bottom line is this here. I just think fundamentally this has to, you have to accept the reality. It was an awful night. He had a bad night. But this notion that you could just go ahead and replace Biden right now and everything is just wonderful and it's going to be all okay is crazy. This ruling right here, this should be the rallying cry of Democrats. This ruling right here and the Chevron decision and the other decisions should be, I don't give a damn who the hell we put up. It has to, there's no way in hell Donald Trump can be allowed to be anywhere near the Oval Office because the Supreme Court is going to allow this man to do whatever he wants, and we know how evil he is and what he is going to do to wreck this country because he has no bottom.
Expanding the court, adding justices to the Supreme Court is the only way to stop the Supreme Court. You can't legislate yourself out of it. You can't legislate with a restoring Roe legislation or a presidents are not immune from crimes legislation because the Supreme Court will strike that down as unconstitutional. So you can't legislate your way out of it. You can't vote your way out of it because the Supreme Court isn't voted on. The only way to stop the Supreme Court is to add justices to the Supreme Court, and Biden has been against adding justices to the Supreme Court for his entire career, including all throughout the run-up to the 2020 election. He has also been against getting rid of the Senate filibuster, which is the kind of proximate cause of why progressive policies and agendas and things like packing the Supreme Court can't be done. If he comes out tonight in the heat of all of these rulings against not just the liberal agenda, but the Democratic agenda, small d, the agenda for democracy, if he doesn't come out against the Supreme Court tonight and say that something must be done to bring these people to heel, then I don't know when he is going to come to it. That is the only solution. In terms of replacing him on the ticket, I'll go to the law here because that's my expertise. If you want to replace Biden on the ticket, the literal only person who can replace him on the ticket is Kamala Harris. I don't say that because I like Kamala and I'm black, although I do like Kamala and I'm black. I say that.
Yeah, we know you black with that Afro pick. We know you black, but go ahead.
I say that because the people who gave them money gave the money to Biden Harris, not Biden or whatever other white guy you guys come up with, right? So if Biden is not going to be the nominee, all of the money and the spending and the ad buys that have been done on behalf of the Biden-Harris campaign go to Kamala Harris. So if you don't like Biden, then your choice is Harris. And if you don't like Biden or Harris, then I guess your choice is fascism. But those are your choices. Those are the sum totals of your option. Biden, Harris, fascism. Pick one and join me in November.
Adam, And Adam, you don't have a pick, Afro pick with you today, but go ahead.
Unfortunately, I no longer have an Afro to pick, although I did have nice hair when I was, 18 years old before it started falling out. But, I mean, obviously he's right. I think the trouble is here is that if you say that Joe Biden has to step down because he's not, he can't campaign, then I think he really has to resign, because there's no way that he can campaign, but he can discharge the office of the presidency. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying he has to resign. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying if he chooses not to run, there's no logic that says he can stay in office to do that job, but he's just not up to running a campaign. Now, obviously, the office of the presidency is much more difficult and much more complicated. But he's right. The only alternative is Harris. It's either Biden or Harris. Those are your choices. So people have to figure that out.
All right, then. Ellie Misto, Adam Sir, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all joining us today on the Black Star Network. Thanks a lot.
Love being on with you two brothers.
All right, appreciate it. Folks, got to go to break. We'll be right back with our panel to get their thoughts on today's momentous decision from this Republican right-wing conservative Supreme Court. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, you see the headlines. All frightening, right? Interest rates are going up. The recession is on the way. The stock market is up and down. But you know what they say, scared money don't make money. That's why I'm excited on our next Get Wealthy to have a conversation with someone who has written a new book, Fearless Finances, and she's going to share exactly what you need to do to secure your bag regardless of the ups and downs of the economy or the stock market.
Oftentimes you can start with as little as $5.
That's right here, only on Get Wealthy on Black Star Network.
Now streaming on the Black Star Network.
We look at all of the best mans, the movies, and then of course, series on Peacock. Why do you think it resonated so well?
Well, I think it's a reflection of us. I think it's a reflection of authentic black people, the way they see themselves. And in some instances, aspirationally so.
What's good, y'all? This is Doug E. Fresh, and you're watching my brother Roland Martin Unfiltered as we go a little something like this. Hit it. It's real.
All right, folks, let's get right to it with my panel. Dr. Julian Malveaux, economist, president, emerita of Bennett College, also author, coming to me from D.C., Dr. Amakongo Debunking Sr., professorial lecturer, School of International Service, American University, also from D.C., and former Georgia State Representative Rita Shannon from Atlanta. Glad to have all three of you here. Amakongo, I'll start with you. What we are dealing with is a hardcore right-wing conservative court that is deadly entrenched in the camp of Donald Trump. They want this man to be president. They are pushing forth an ideological agenda. This notion that the Supreme Court is nonpartisan, they call balls and strikes, is absolutely BS.
Yeah, and I think we have to be mindful of the fact that this is not an activist court. An activist court tries to enforce the Constitution in their view in some way, shape, or form. This is an extremist court. This is its goal. It's a MAGA court. And their goal is to be in line with Project 2025 and be in line with a man who said that he wants to seek retribution. And they did this with abortion, and they did this with all of the cases, affirmative action, this idea. They always try to go to some pie-in-the-sky theory instead of dealing with what's right in front of them. And it's shady and it's despicable, and we shouldn't be surprised that this has been their MO. And it's like you said right before we went into the break, Roland, now it's like it doesn't even matter. Like, the fight is real. And if it's always been real to us, Black Star Network, all of the panels every day, all of us who vote, Black Voters Matter. But I'm talking about for the rest of the country. Like, if you didn't realize how real this was before, you have to realize this now. The United States can no longer say nobody's above the law. You have to say nobody's above the law except the president. You can no longer say, you know, that we hold these ideas to be self-evident and we believe in institutions. No, you have to say as long as the leaders believe in them too. Because who knew that it would just take one person and say, well, I don't believe in the Constitution, and all of a sudden here we are. We have to get out of this notion that countries that are democratic fall because of military coups and tanks that show up at the president's door. Democracy doesn't die like that. Democracy doesn't die in darkness. Democracy dies right in light of day with regular people every single day, and it starts with people who get complacent and give their rights up to somebody else. That's what happens across the globe. And so we have to be mindful of that every single day, this is what we are experiencing now. And so when it comes down to what happened with Trump and this decision, what are we willing to do, America? Look what's happening in France with their, election results, and look what people are doing all across the world when they are frustrated. Half the world right now, Roland, is voting to be Democratic or dictatorial. And the United States is up right now. What are we going to do with that? Right now, too many of us are standing idly by worrying about a debate when we actually might be able to lose the only democracy, imperfect as it is, that the majority of us have ever known.
You know, Renita, people have to understand how critical this election is. The only way to stop Donald Trump and to stop this hardcore right-wing Supreme Court is to vote and make sure Trump is not even anywhere near the Oval Office. He can be beaten. He can be stopped. That will not happen if people are sitting on the couch.
Well, in addition to keeping Trump out of the White House, it takes more than that. Like Ellie Mistel said, you are going to have to restack this Supreme Court, and you're going to have to put justices that are actually interested in upholding the Constitution as opposed to writing from the bench their own Constitution. The Supreme Court judges are supposed to be interpreting law, not making law, and far too often for the last couple of years or so, what we've seen is Supreme Court justices that almost feel like they are legislators. Their job is to interpret the law, not to make law. As it relates to their decision today with Donald Trump, at the end of the day, any black person in this country knows that there have always been people above the law. It's nice to say that no one's above the law in this country, but that's just not true. That is something that is aspirational for this country. It's time to actually make that true. We can even see with Donald Trump, even with him not in office, he's been essentially above the law. I don't know anybody else who can walk around with more than 30 felonies and not actually be in jail already. And I don't know very many people who actually think that when it comes to sentencing for the 34 felonies that he's been convicted of, that he will actually go to jail. So for more often than not, we see that wealthy white men in this country, regardless of party affiliation, are above the law. And it's time that we, leaders want folks to have faith in the justice system. This is exactly why people don't have faith in the justice system, because we see that the justice system is willing to twist and turn to support wealthy white men to not hold them accountable. And then when it comes to anyone else who's not a wealthy white man, particularly black and brown folks, you see the justice system bending over backwards to throw us in jail. And that's just where we are.
Well, here's the deal, though, Julian. The reality is you cannot increase the Supreme Court if you don't vote. Look, it doesn't happen by happenstance. That has to happen by Congress, which means you got to vote for who you want to be president. You got to vote for folks in the House, and you got to vote for folks in the Senate. And so it just doesn't happen. I remember I was talking to this one guy. He was like, yeah, I ain't voting until we change electoral college. And I was like, dumbass. You do know you do know that members of Congress have to vote on a constitutional amendment to change the electoral college. Then it has to go to the states to be ratified, which means you got to vote on the federal and the state level. He was like, oh, I didn't know that. And that's the thing people have to understand. And so this is why exercising the right to vote is critical in November. You cannot decide to sit your ass on the couch.
You know, Roland, it's interesting. We stopped teaching civics, made it elective, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. So your friend Dumbass has a lot of friends who don't understand. It's like some of these ADOS so-called reparations activists who say they're not going to vote till they get reparations. Well, fools, do you think you're going to get reparations if you don't vote? Yeah, I mean, you come up with these cockamamie reasons why you're not going to vote, and really to not vote is to vote to be re-enslaved. That's what it is. And you see it with this opinion. I would ask everybody to read what Justice Sotomayor said, just scathing and brilliant. I want to just read a couple of sentences, if I might. This official act's immunity has no firm grounding in constitutional text, history, or precedent. She goes on to say, history only matters to this court when it is convenient. And you know, in some ways she's referring to Dobbs, but in many other ways she's just talking about how you showed the clips of those folks at their confirmation hearings. All of them should be charged with perjury. But I guess if they were, they probably passed some ruling that they couldn't be held for their perjury because it was part of their official duty to basically hold up the Orange Man. It's so infuriating when you read, first of all, Sotomayor's very precisely reasoned opinion, as opposed to that slop that John Roberts put out there. The so-called, all these people say they have reverence for the court, they have reverence for history, but they don't have any reverence when it comes to the truth. They don't have, their reverence is for that Orange Man. Their reverence is not for the truth, it's not for justice. It's infuriating, but you have come to the conclusion that many of us have, Roland, that we all have. If you don't vote, you have no power. And so it's very frustrating to see so many young people say they're not going to vote. The other thing, Biden had a horrible debate. I framed it in a column as you have a choice between a liar in chief or the mumbler in chief. And if I had a choice between a liar and a mumbler, I'll take the mumbler every single day. But while all these Democratic pundits, James Carville, all those, used to be big Democrats, are whining, and then your intro was absolutely right, whining, bedwetting, tripping. While they're doing all that, they're not paying attention to the policy space. I don't care what Reverend Jackson said years ago. I'd rather see Roosevelt in a wheelchair than Reagan on a horse. I mean, unless Biden has dementia, which there's no evidence of that, I'd rather, he can mumble if he wants to. He's a good man. He's done a lot, not only for Black community, but for the nation. And I think it's unworthy of people who call themselves Democrats and say they're progressives to be piddling around talking about, well, look at the way he walked. He addressed that. He didn't walk like he used to. Nobody does. However, he still gets from point A to point B. Or like Reverend Barber said on Saturday, you were there, he said that Harriet Tubman had epilepsy. He listed all these things. He said, I don't walk that well either, but I know how to walk toward justice. This ruling is unjust, and it does set up a hierarchy, a class hierarchy that puts Black people back again on the bottom.
Look, I'm trying to explain to people what the Supreme Court just laid out. They just said, Donald Trump, if you get elected again, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can do whatever the hell you want, and you won't be prosecuted. If you want to use the IRS to go after your political enemies, go right ahead and call an official act. If you want to use the DOJ to prosecute your enemies, go right ahead. I'm telling everybody who is watching and listening to the sound of my voice, we are going to endure hell if this crazy, deranged fool gets back into the White House. I'm warning y'all right now. It's going to be awful. Going to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Democrats crying, whining, talking about you need a whole new nominee. It ain't that simple, folks. So we'll break that down next. Don't forget, support us in what we do, folks. Join our Bring the Fuck fan club. You can see your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. A lot of y'all have been asking me about the pocket squares that we have available on our website. You see me rocking the Shibori pocket square right here. It's all about looking different. Now look, summertime is coming up. Y'all know, I keep trying to tell fellas, change your look, please. You can't wear athletic shoes every damn wear. So if you're putting on linen suits, if you're putting on some summer suits, have a whole different look. The reason I like this particular pocket square, the Shibori, is because it's sort of like a flower. and looks pretty cool here versus the traditional boring silk pocket squares. But also I like being a little different as well. So this is why we have these custom-made feather pocket squares on the website as well. My sister actually designed these after a few years ago. I was in this battle with Steve Harvey at Essence, and I saw this at a St. Jude fundraiser. I saw this feather pocket square, and I said, well, I got some ideas. So I hit her, and she sent me about 30 different ones. And so this completely changes your look. Now, some of you men out there, I had some dudes say, oh, man, I can't wear that. Well, if you ain't got swagger, that's not my problem. But if you're looking for something different to spruce up your look, fellas, ladies, if y'all looking to get your man a good gift, I've run into brothers all across the country with the feather pocket squares saying, see, check mine out. And so it's always good to see them. And so this is what you do. Go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. You can order Shibori pocket squares or the custom-made pocket squares. Now, for the Shiboris, we're out of a lot of the different colors, and I think we're down to about 200 or 300. So you want to get your order in as soon as you can, because here's what happened. I got these several years ago, and the Japanese company signed a deal with another company, and I bought them before they signed that deal, and so I can't get access to any more from the company in Japan that makes them. And so get yours now. So come summertime, when I see y'all at Essence, y'all could be looking fly with the Shibori pocket square or the custom-made pocket square. Again, RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. Go there now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, Democrats have been wetting the bed, really upset with what took place on Thursday's debate, President Joe Biden's performance. Even he admitted the next day in Raleigh, North Carolina, that he was not sharp, was not good. And so you're going to now, they're reporting that yesterday the Biden family met at Camp David for a pre-arranged photo with Annie Leibovitz, and boy, they were really ticked off with a lot of his advisors wanting them to resign. Anita Dunn, Bob Bauer, as well as his longtime aide, Ron Klain. No indication the president is going to fire any of them, or they're going to actually resign as well. But this campaign, as well as President Biden, is under intense pressure to determine whether he is going to move forward. The reality is he is going to have to make the decision. Now, he's stepped forward and already made clear that he is not stepping down. But then you have folks like James Carville, other folks, donors were on a call yesterday, and they were whining, complaining, some of them saying they wanted their donations back as a result of this. And so it's a whole lot of back and forth that we have been seeing, have been hearing when it comes to this election. And so the question is, what do you do? What actually happens? How do you move forward? Do Democrats go ahead and say, we're going to stick with President Joe Biden, he is going to be our nominee, or are they going to consider pushing him to step down, resign, and leave? And so it has been just a lot of discussion back and forth. And I saw a tweet over the weekend from retired General Russel Honoré that I got a pretty good kick out of. He was basically just telling these Democrats, shut the hell up and get your game face on and focus on the task at hand. I'm gonna see if I can pull the tweet up. And if you guys go ahead and pull it up. This is right here where he laid out, please stop pissing on yourself. And he went on and on and on, laying this whole thing out in terms of what Democrats should be doing. He cut right to the chase, the same way he did when he hit the ground in New Orleans during after Hurricane Katrina. He joins us right now. And General, glad to have you here. I mean, my goodness, these folks really do need somebody with some guts, somebody with an attitude to whip them into shape and to realize you calling for Biden to step down after one debate. I don't recall the New York Times or the Land Journal-Constitution saying Donald Trump should step down after he was found guilty of sexually assaulting a woman and found guilty of 34 felonies.
Absolutely. Circle the wagon. In every war, you're going to lose a battle, but you adapt, you overcome, and you win the war. Losing a battle, if you haven't lost the battle, you hadn't done anything. And that was a battle loss, but it's an opportunity because they allowed the convicted felon that's running for the White House to spend an hour and a half spewing lies. I don't think he said one thing that was true. As opposed to the Democrats circle the wagon and focus on the lies of the convicted criminal, they beat their own guy up. And I wish James Carville and that Obama crowd and that Clinton crowd that get all the time on television, shut the hell up. If you're not going to support Biden, shut the hell up. Attack the other guy. If you can't say nothing good, shut the hell up and focus on the other guy. That's what we got to do and get the vote out, because we got to get the young people excited about coming out to vote. The young people can save the democracy in the United States, and that's what we need to be talking about.
Now, General, I've never served in the military because I don't do well taking orders. But when it comes to debating, when it comes to being on the offensive, I am a firm believer of attack, attack, attack. And that's exactly what you're saying here. That man stood there and lied over and over and over and over again, and you heard Biden say, hey, I might not walk as fast as I used to, I may not talk as smooth as I used to, but damn it, I tell the truth. And so you don't sit here and let a fluid liar get away with it.
Absolutely. You know, a convicted felon can't be in the Army. We're about to let this guy be commander-in-chief again. If we let these talking folks who are on TV now beating their own guy up, beat the other guy up. I mean, experienced politicians have said this throughout the year. Don't talk about your own team, talk about the other guy. And we've lost some opportunities. Some of the crime going on in the debate analysis, I had to turn the damn thing off for 2 days. Watching some names that you and I both recognize, people we know that we've conversed with, come on TV damn near crying over the debate, while the other guy allowed the line for an hour and a half. They said nothing about that. They beat up on their own guy. Hey, look, the other side, they got this down. They'll support a liar. They went to court with him. This guy been convicted of grabbing women by the parts. He's been convicted in court of assaulting a lady for sexual assault. And he's going to be the commander-in-chief. He couldn't even join the Army with his criminal record.
Well, and the thing that also jumps out at me here, when you talk about the line, the man sat there and just lied about the military, lied about support, lied about what he claims he did not say, and then lied about even Ukraine and Putin. Y'all go ahead and roll it.
Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such.
Who literally said to NATO, hey, if y'all don't pay up, Putin can do whatever the hell y'all want. And then in that debate, he lied about that. He lied. He said, oh, when he talked about losers and suckers, he said, oh, I fired that general. I never said that. General John Kelly, a retired four-star, confirmed Donald Trump said that. And you know what, General Honoré? I really wish General Kelly would have the guts, stop hiding behind a quiet confirmation. I wish General Kelly would come out and give a major speech and let it come out of his own mouth what Donald Trump said, because I think people would listen to that man, especially serving as his chief of staff and being a four-star general, if he told American people what Trump said about our troops who were killed in battle.
I agree with you. It needs to come out of his mouth. It also needs to be repeated the number of high officials that worked for Trump that are in jail or on their way to jail, And the number of high officials that collectively signed a letter say he should be nowhere near the White House again, to include all of his two of his national security advisors say he should never be in the White House again. He's not to be trusted. He took classified documents and put them in a bathroom. He showed them around Mar-a-Lago. This guy should never be entrusted again with the leadership of this country. And people got to get off their AZZ and go vote. And that's the banner we need to be talking, Roland. Get off your AZZ and go vote. You can't sit around and say, I didn't get what I wanted the last time. I ain't watching the election. I ain't going to vote for an old guy. Well, guess what? You will end up in a situation where a lot of black and brown people will be sent out of this country on day one. And there will be nothing, no progress for the people of color.
I'd be curious, General, have you volunteered or have they reached out to you? I would love to see you do something with Vice President Kamala Harris in North Carolina, in Virginia, places where we had battleground states where you got significant veteran presence, or even something, she's doing a lot of conversations with black men because what I believe is it's great having actors and comedians, but I just think you got to have some folk who are speaking a different way in some of these conversations. So I'm just curious, have you expressed interest in doing anything like that or what you want to?
Well, they got my address. They know how to get a hold of me. But remember, they trust fellow politicos, people that have run campaigns. And if you hadn't run a campaign, you have no voice. The other side used their public servants quite effectively in the last election. But they got my address, they know my phone number, and we'll get it done if I'm asked. But American people, just please repeat to all our Gen Z young people that's going to be voting for the first time, please get out to vote. Take somebody with you, double your impact. We can defeat this criminal and keep him out of the White House because he will destroy this country. He's already got a plan to do it, the 2025 plan, and it will destroy this country.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example of the lies. How many times have we heard Donald Trump lie? He did it in the debate again. How many times have we heard him take credit for a bill that Obama signed? It's the Veterans Access to Care Through Choice. It was signed in 2014, and how many times has Trump, in fact, I'm going to play this here. I mean, listen to this right here.
And people are waiting on line for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months. And I made a deal with Congress. I had to get it through Congress that anybody that has to wait more than 24 hours goes outside, goes to a local doctor, we pay the bill, they get themselves fixed up, and it worked. And people are waiting on.
That's a lie. That's a lie because this right here, this Obama signing the bill.
President and Commander-in-Chief, and I have no greater privilege than the chance to help make sure that our country keeps the promises that we've made to everybody who signs up to serve. And as long as I hold this office, we're going to spend each and every day working to do right by you and your families. I'm grateful to you. God bless you. God bless America. With that, I am going to sign this bill. Thank you very much, everybody.
I mean, this is literally, go back to it. This is literally Obama signing the bill that Trump has, for the last 7.5 years, claimed that he got passed. The man, I keep saying the man will lie about a lie.
Yeah, if his boss is moving, he's lying. I can just tell you that. He's a lying criminal, is what he is. And I hope our members of Congress get their big pants on and come out and support their candidate and stop talking about what didn't happen at the debate and talk about this lying criminal that's trying to get back in the White House that will destroy our democracy. Look what he's done with this Supreme Court. Look what they did today. They basically told him he could do anything he wants. He literally could go down the street and shoot somebody. He literally could take SEAL Team 6 and go shoot somebody. Well, what happens right now? What the hell's going on in the country? That the President of the United States could order somebody eliminated? And the Supreme Court think that's okay? What the hell's going on? That court need to go away, and the only way it's going to go away is we got to win the House, the Senate, and the White House. People need to understand that. They're going after health care. They're going after women's health care. They're going to go after abortion pills, and they're going to eliminate people's right to vote. You watch what I'm telling you. We've got to defeat this criminal in the next election, and we got to win the House and the Senate. Don't forget to pick your candidates for the House and the Senate and vote for them, and take somebody with you when you go vote.
All right, then. Well, General, I'm going to pass that note on to the Vice President's office, because I really think, again, if they want to have some real voices out there talking to veterans, talking to the military community, talking to black men, that you are somebody that will be a strong voice, because listen, this is all hands on deck. We can't take one day off between now and Election Day. We see the evil that's before our very eyes, and we cannot be silent to act like we can just coast. No, we can't assume anything. The best way to ensure Donald Trump never gets near the Oval Office is to hand him another L in November.
You know, what I see, Laura, Roland, is the criminal brings out black entertainers and sports figures, selected people, to speak on his behalf. Where in the hell are the sports and entertainment people speaking on behalf of Biden? Where are they? Where's Oprah and them? Where they at?
Great point. Great point. And you can't be waiting until October and November. You got to be doing it now.
Absolutely. Good job, Roland. Keep up the message.
All right, General Honoré, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
I'm here. Get off your AZZ and vote.
Yes, indeed. Let's go to my panel here. Listen, Renita, this is not that difficult. General just said it. You circle the wagons. Republicans have been circling the wagon. Okay, they know what they got. They know he a liar. They know he's a doggone thug in chief, but they want that power. And so Democrats are walking around like a bunch of punk asses. Oh my God, okay, he's too old. Trump been out there lying, mumbling stuff. Donald Trump actually stood out there and said, matter of fact, let me see if I can find it. Donald Trump actually said at one of these rallies that he got the vote of comedian Joan Rivers. Well, that's a little hard, because Joan Rivers died in 2014. So I don't know how in the hell she actually voted. Matter of fact, that was an audio interview. Listen to this.
Joan said she was a Republican. Did you know that?
I thought she might have been a Republican.
Yeah.
I know one thing, she voted for me, according to what she said.
How in the hell she voted for your ass when she was dead? Renita?
So on the one hand, winning a debate does not guarantee you that you're going to win an election. Plenty of candidates, whether you're talking about for president or whether you're talking about running for local office, we've seen this time and time again where candidates have gotten to the point where they don't even show up for a debate, and it has absolutely no impact on their election. But on the other hand, and this is what I think that we're in the territory of now with what happened with the debate performance on Thursday, is that when you do show up to a debate, if there are catastrophic things that happen within that debate, then those are opportunities to make clips and to make commercials that can reach the general public, where the general public really doesn't watch debates like that. And that's usually not what they use to make their defining decision of who they're going to vote for. I know that my opinion is in the minority on this panel. It's completely fine. I'm fine with that. I've had the experience of campaigning to voters, and I'm going to tell you this. Saying that this is about backbone or people whining or anything like that is just not helpful. The worst thing that Democrats can do right now is dismiss people's concerns. At the end of the day, every voter has their own metric of what they're going to use to decide who to vote for. And so people are, alarmed right now because they understand that the average voter out there who we need as Democrats to show up and vote are not people who are going to take a lot of time to do fancy calculations about, well, you see, this is with the Supreme Court. We need this, we need that. They are going to go with their visceral reaction reaction of whether or not they want to vote. So I think that there are pros or cons whether or not they want to vote for Biden, because again, this is not a choice between Trump and Biden. That's the old way of thinking about elections. This is a choice about people voting or not voting, and that's a decision that every voter makes. At the end of the day, we have to listen to what people are saying. There are pros and cons, whether there's pros and cons to keeping Biden, there's pros and cons to trying to get another nominee. I think what the Democrats need to do, which is what they have not done for some time now, at least a decade, is actually go and deal with people's concerns head on. If people are saying that they don't feel confident that he can handle the job after Thursday night's debate, do not dismiss those concerns. You've got to deal with them. Because I'll tell you this, telling people that they have to vote and this is the way that they should make their decision, that doesn't make people actually vote. Voters are happy to stay home, and we will be upset, but they will not. And so at the end of the day, we can only decide what it is that we're going to use as far as how we decide who to vote for in our minds. But everybody always has a different way. Every voter has their own metrics that they're going to use to vote. And people are not going to go through whether or not they think he clinically has dementia. It's going to be that gut feeling. It's always been that way. Even look at when you go back when Nixon ran the first time against JFK, he didn't wear makeup at one of the debates they had. It was one of the first televised debates in history. And JFK ended up winning that cycle. And a lot of people attribute it back to Nixon looking tired.
Well, let's be real clear. Let's be real clear. JFK also won because his daddy bought some votes.
Right, but that debate was central to.
No. I understand the debate, but here's the reality.
They should not. Don't just dismiss concerns.
No, but here's the deal. But no. I'm not dismissing concerns. I'm looking at what's sitting before us. And what's sitting before us is this. It's July 1st. First, all this talk about Whitmer, Newsom, Shapiro. Here's the problem. There's $220 million has been raised by the Biden-Harris campaign. That money can't go to anybody else. A small portion of that went to the DNC. Now, you got the people in the party, all of these people who are talking about replacing Biden, none of them are saying, let's make it Vice President Kamala Harris. And so you now got to get over that particular issue of the people saying, hey, let's replace the entire ticket and pull her off. Let's see how black folks feel about that. But let's say Harris is let's say, okay, he does step down. Harris is a nominee. Can't be Newsom, both are from California. Can't be Whitmer, America ain't gonna go for two women on the ticket. Can't be Westmore, they damn sure didn't go for two black people on the ticket. So now the question is, what are you now left with? And so all of those are factors here. And the reason why I call it bedwetting or whining, I'm also looking at how the opposition responds. The New York Times, Julian, never did an editorial calling for Donald Trump to step down after he was convicted. But they called for Biden to step down after one debate. Land Journal-Constitution never called for Donald Trump to step down after he was found liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. But they said, oh, Biden should step down. Also, I saw Republicans in Congress go to New York City and just every single day standing there, oh, we're standing with Donald Trump. They circle the wagons. They know about all of his failings. They know about him cheating on his wives. They know about him cheating on his taxes. They know about him having all the money he owes because his charity that got shut down, inflating his businesses. But you know what they said? He ain't going nowhere. And so again, I believe what we're seeing here, Democrats love to play by a set of rules that nobody else is playing by. And so if I'm assessing what I'm looking at, what are my options? The reality is you ain't got that many options. And so the option likely is roll with the one that brung you. Because otherwise you actually think, oh, taking Biden and Harris off and putting somebody else in and then they running in a sprint for 2 months and you think you're gonna win? Yeah, good luck.
But you know, Roland, this whole thing, I mean, you're absolutely right. I agree partially with Renita about listening to the people, going to the voters, hearing what they have to say. But at the end of the day, like I said, unless someone can prove to me that he has dementia, which he does not, I think Biden's a guy, I think we stick with him. Everybody's not going to be happy about it, but would you be happy with Trump? I mean, would you really, people, would you be happy with Trump? So you're right about, I forgot who said, I don't belong to an organized party, I'm a Democrat. And that's because Democrats just behave like we never agree. Back in the day when I was doing a lot of television, CNN, PBS, all that stuff, what used to crack me up is the Republican would come in there with a little cheat sheet. The Republican Party would send them talking points every morning. And by the time they showed up to argue with a Democrat, because if you argue with two of them the same day, they say the same thing. Meanwhile, we're over there freestyling, doing whatever. Very well, I might add, but from time to time, you need to be on the same page in the same hymn book. So this where we are right now, I'm so glad you had General Honoré on. Because where we are right now is the Democrats just need to pull up their big girl or boy draws and keep it moving. On the subject
in fact, hold tight 1 second. That was a Republican who was speaking at the Aspen Institute, who actually, what you just said, he actually said what you just said. It was quite interesting. Give me 1 second, see if I can find it. It was quite interesting listening to this guy. And again, he's a Republican operative. And he was talking about how you have to fight when you're in the middle of a battle. Here it is right here. Watch this right here.
You have a candidate that has flaws. They're significant. But he's better than a 34-time convicted felon. Pick up your swords and march down the battlefield. That's how you win. It's not taking off-ramps, folks. The Republicans are not taking off-ramps. If you don't think this is a winnable race, you're not paying attention to the data. It's extremely winnable.
Now, that guy's name is Mike Madrid, and again, has worked in Republican politics. And if there's anybody, Juliana, who knows about being cutthroat and going with it, that's Republican operatives.
Absolutely. No, these Democrats, again, we dither around. We're all over the spectrum. On this one, we have to be united. But I don't see, I'm really frustrated. I want to say one thing about the Orange Man. Remember when Mary McCarthy wrote about Lillian Hellman? She said everything that she writes is a lie, even the and the and. That's Trump. Anything that comes, if his lips are moving, his behind is lying. And we know it. So how, like the Mike Miller said, how do we go along with someone with 34 felonies? I mean, I have relatives up under the jail. They only have like 3 felonies, 34 felonies. That sexual assault, cheating on his taxes, and bragging about basically what he can get away with. And now the court, of course, has affirmed that. The only way we get out of this imbroglio is that we vote. And young'uns, old ones, I have a young relative who told me he couldn't vote. I said, take your Aunt Juliana off your Christmas list, because I will not give you another quarter until I see a piece of paper that says you. We have to be hard line about this voting. We really, really do. And again, we've got folks who are running around. I'm thinking about some of my reparations people who want to vote for Jill Stein. Why? Why? I mean, when people start giving you these bogus excuses, what we have to say is why? What do you think you're going to get with crazy Robert F., whatever his name is, Robert F. Kennedy, wasting your vote on that? Jill Stein is a space cadet. What are you going to get from that? You have a protest vote. Your protest vote is to keep the Orange Man out of the White House.
Congo, the Biden campaign dropped this ad today. Watch.
Did you see Trump last night? I mean it sincerely, the most lies told in a single debate. He lied about the great economy he created. He lied about the pandemic he botched. And then, his biggest lie, he lied about how he had nothing to do with the insurrection of January 6th. We all saw with our own eyes.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
We saw police being attacked, the Capitol being ransacked. He did not a single thing to stop it, nothing. Folks, I know I'm not a young man, but I know how to do this job. I know right from wrong. I know how to tell the truth. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Now, I'm a Congo. Totally understand the point that Renita is making there in terms of where people stand, how they feel, but here's and also the clips. But here's the other thing. Yes, I know the numbers. 51 million watched the debate. That was actually the lowest watched debate since 2004 between Bush and Kerry, okay? Which was like 74, 75 million, all right? It was June 27th. So the reality is, if you go on the counteroffensive, if you're driving a message about the lies he told, if you're sitting here hitting him and hammering on every single one of the platforms, then you're now feeding into the system what also took place that night, and you're countering what they're doing with Joe Biden. But if you're the Democrats and all you're doing is talking about, oh my God, how he was feeble and he was awful and he was this, he was that, I haven't heard a single Republican complain about anything bad that Donald Trump did. They've been on the offensive. That's all I'm talking about. When you sit here, you don't accentuate your negatives, you accentuate your positives, or you accentuate the other person's negatives.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about this happening in June, is that you have plenty of time to provide a counter narrative. And so going off of what Renita was saying, I understand what Renita is talking about as it relates to individual voters and the incentive that we need to give and the language. I get that. My bigger issue is with the Democratic insiders, the Democratic consultant class, One thing I appreciated over the weekend was all of the Democratic politicians that I saw. I haven't watched everybody, but Clyburn, Jeffries, Pelosi, everybody was like, yeah, it wasn't the greatest, but we stand behind him. Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing publicly, and you're supposed to bring all of this other stuff. You're supposed to keep it in-house as it relates to what needs to happen going forward. Look, they can all come together and decide, hey, Biden, we're going to support you, but as soon as you get over and you win, resign so Kamala Harris can take over. Like, do something like behind closed doors. But all of this bickering now, what are you going to have, a broker convention? You know, it's going to look worse than 68. Like, what are you really going to do in the next 4 months that's going to fully change the directory when you have a man who thrives off of his opponents not being unified? And that's what Democrats need to do. I'm not saying this whole thing about shut up. I'm saying be mindful of where you're putting out your concerns. You got Biden's number. And that's probably why his family wanted so many of these guys to resign. And to be quite honest, Biden shouldn't even have called for a debate in the first place, because he elevated Trump on some level. Why are you debating a convicted felon? But the point of the matter is, if we want to win in November, there needs to be more closed door meetings, more closed door conversations, and more organizing towards winning this election. Biden is worthy of all the critique, but like you said, Republicans don't care. Republicans don't need to fall in love. They just need to fall in line. And you got Byron Donalds out there doing this, cigars in Congress and convicts and cognac, whatever the hell he's doing, trying to imitate Club Shay Shay and all of this other type of stuff, trying to get this vote and that vote. All they need to do is pick away at different parts of our constituencies, and that's all it's going to take for Trump to get over. And so I'm saying the Democratic consulting class and other influential people need to be more organized that way. And lastly, shout out to Taraji P. Henson, who actually did what Russel Honoré was talking about and used her Black celebrity status to call out the importance of voting for Joe Biden and against Project 2025 and all of this other stuff at the BET Awards.
My focus is real simple. Take his ass out at the ballot box. There's no other option. I got to go to a break. We come back. We could talk with Attorney General of Illinois, Kwame Raoul. He is standing up against these Republican attorney generals and fighting for DEI programs. He joins me next on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Dr. Gerald Horne, a man regarded by many as the most important historian of our time. He provides us a history lesson I'm betting you've never heard before.
Texas enslavers who planned to continue the conflict even after Appomattox, even after the formal surrender of Robert E. Lee.
Dr. Horne talks about his new book, The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas, Slavery, and Jim Crow, and the Roots of U.S. Fascism. You do not want to miss this conversation. Only on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
On a next, A Balanced Life, it takes a village to raise a child, and truer words have never been spoken. If you're raising a child, you know that it's a blessed challenge like no other. Even more so if your child has a disability. We'll talk to parents and our expert panelists about the best way forward for your child to help you maintain your own sanity. On a next, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie on Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Marissa Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC. Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
When the Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action in colleges and admissions, Republican attorney generals, what they decided to do was attack these programs all across the country, sending letters to various law firms saying that their programs were unconstitutional. Well, now you have progressive attorney generals who say that the American Bar Association's standard on diversity and inclusion is important and must be upheld. Illinois State Attorney General Kwame Raoul and 19 state attorneys generals are publicly supporting DEI programs. He joins us now from Chicago. Glad to have you here, AG Raoul. I mean, finally this is happening. You know, I keep talking about going on the offense, and it was pissing me off, you know, after this when Senator Tom Cotton decided on his own to send a letter. And I remember I was in a session during the Congressional Black Caucus with Senator Cory Booker and Senator Warnock. I said, damn it, send your own letter. I said, let's have these Democratic attorney generals go on the offensive. I said, let's stop playing defense and fight for stuff like DEI programs.
Yeah, Roland, you're absolutely right. And we went on the offensive last year. In fact, we responded right away. My colleague out of Nevada, Aaron Ford, led a group of us in response to the initial letter. And those initial letters last year, the specific thing about the references within those letters, they were attacking programs that specifically help African Americans. It wasn't just this broader diversity attack. It was programs that help the African Americans, such as the suit involving the Fearless Fund. And references were all about programs that helped African Americans. So it's not just attack on DEI just generally. It's a audacious racist attack.
Yeah, and what they're targeting programs that have been beneficial for African Americans, and they want to shut all those down. They're attacking law firms, corporate America, every single program out there. And I have told some corporations, just because they haven't got to you yet, don't mean they ain't coming.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, to your point, to your initial point, if we are not responding back as aggressively and more aggressively, many of these corporations are going to retreat. We all already see it. They're afraid to even use the word diversity. So it's important for us to use our voices to say, hey, we are the consumers out here. We are the consumers out here, and we expect the boardrooms, we expect the executive offices, and we expect employees at large to reflect the diversity of our overall American population. And we want the halls of education opportunity to look the same as well. And so where the ABA stands up and has a standard that doesn't say you have to make race-based admissions decisions, but says you have to have a concrete commitment to diversity, that does not violate SFFA v. Harvard in any way. And so this attempt to intimidate the ABA in its accreditation process towards having them have institutions that commit themselves to diversity should not be tolerated.
Well, you make a great point there, and that is, if these corporations, look, they run scared. Okay, they're scared of sitting here. There was one company. Man, I forgot. It was some. I don't know if it was a fishing company or a lumber company or something. And so these Republicans started attacking them, saying they're going to launch a boycott, and they shut down all of their DEI programs. And we saw how they attacked Target over LGBTQ items that were on display. And so, this is what they're doing. And so folks are running for cover. And so therefore, when you run for cover, it's like you got to give folks cover. You got to fight back.
That's right. And so one of the things that we've historically done, you were once in Chicago, and when I was in the state Senate, we called on the pension funds that many black folks and brown folks pay into to make sure they have the financial services companies reflect the population of the folks who were putting their money into these pension funds. And it had a dramatic effect because we had annual hearings, we were asking questions, we were asking for numbers, and we can't stop doing that. We have to continue to be aggressive with regards to this call for inclusion. Otherwise, we're not going to be included in the American dream.
Questions for the panel. Julian, you first.
First of all, thanks for your work, Brother Man, Hashan. Appreciate your work in Illinois. Many folks have gone after DEI programs, and this Ed Blum, who seems to be at the forefront of all this, what can you all say so that those of us who are not attorneys, what can the rest of us do to support the work that you're doing and to basically repel the work that Mr. Blum is doing?
Well, I think part of it is we have to continue, because we're all consumers, we have to continue to ask questions. Ask questions about who's in your boardroom. Ask questions about who comprises your executive leadership team. Ask questions about how many people of color do you have working? How many companies are you contracting with that are minority owned? There's a power in asking a question that doesn't call for a racial mandate, but by asking the questions and by saying that, hey, we are consumers, we spend money like anybody else, and we expect to see ourselves reflected in the companies that we invest in and we buy products and services from.
Thank you.
Omakongo?
Mr. Raul, thank you so much for your work. And, I speak, my question is this. I speak at corporations and associations in the DEI space for across the country. And for years, I started to see a little bit of a fear of speaking up about these things from companies I used to work with. And then I started to see a shift towards a little bit of a diversity fatigue. You said that y'all were right at the top from the jump speaking out about why this was a problem, people trying to end DEI. What are you seeing now, July 2024, in terms of an attitude shift of the people that you're working with, and how are they responding to what you're doing?
Yeah, and so I don't want to make it seem like we're out here alone with this advocacy. We've connected with the Black Economic Alliance, the Congressional Black Caucus has put out letters asking those questions that I referenced earlier. So there's a willingness for folks to speak out, and there's some corporate representatives as well who have said we are not retreating. Now, I'm not going to tell these corporations, because I wasn't happy with the decision in FFA v. Harvard, and I'm not naive about. I mean, we've seen the Supreme Court's decisions over the last week, including today. I'm not naive about how our courts are comprised and the dangers that may exist, but it's not a time for us to retreat.
Renita?
Yes, thank you so much for your work. What you're doing is really important. I think far too often people think of DEI issues as being soft issues that really don't come to the top of their list, but there are hard, tangible impacts when you remove DEI programs. So I'm glad that you covered how this affects many different industries. I'd love for you to connect for the audience how this relates to health care that Black people receive in this country as it relates to removing DEI from medical programs across the country and realizing that the students of today are the doctors tomorrow. Talk about the correlations, if you can, of as we're doing what we can to have better health care and take better care of ourselves as Black folks in the country, how DEI actually has a role in that.
It has an incredible role in it. And when you talk about health care today in particular, there's a lot of private equity investment in healthcare, and it's changing the way that healthcare providers approach provision of healthcare, and there's a disparate impact on people of color. If you think about during the COVID pandemic, who you admit into a hospital and who you turn back, who you give a certain type of treatment and who you don't give that treatment to. And unless you have that representation within, my wife is a physician, and she talks about it frequently, how even physicians who Black physicians who present themselves as patients sometimes are discriminated against. And so if you're somebody who knows, who has the wealth of knowledge in healthcare, and you're going to be discriminated against, how about the layperson? And so the point that you raise is a critically important one. Particularly, healthcare is a booming industry where private equities putting their foot in within that industry, and there's some devastating impacts as a result. And my office, as well as some other offices, are looking into that as well.
All right, then. Well, AG Raul, we surely appreciate it. Hey, while you're here, just look, you're a top official there. Just want to get your thoughts to weigh in on this presidential race and, all the different calls out here. Some people are saying Biden should step down moving forward. Just what do you think about all that you're hearing after Thursday's debate? Well,
I did an interview on Friday, and I said, what we weren't talking about aggressively, and all of these Democratic strategists are calling for him to step aside. None of them are putting their name to it, and that really disturbs me. It's anonymous Democratic strategists. When the reality is, I think Trump provided so much ammunition when he said everybody was against Roe v. Wade, when he talked about the black jobs. We should be jumping on all of the statements that Trump made within that debate, and we should be lifting that up to demonstrate what the consequence is if you elect Trump again. And today's decision about presidential immunity should strike a fear in everybody of the dangers of electing Trump, our next president.
All right, then. Attorney General Raul, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, in about 19 minutes, President Joe Biden will be addressing the nation about today's Supreme Court decision, basically saying the President of the United States is a king. So we'll be covering that right here on the show. Don't forget, support the work that we do, folks. Nobody else is doing what we're doing. The Griot, they got rid of all of their news shows. Nobody else is doing a daily news show like we are, not just this show, but the other 4 weekly shows that we have. Nobody else. We were the only black-owned media outlet. We were the only, other than Pacifica Radio, we were the only national media outlet that was there on Saturday, the Poor People's Campaign Mass Assembly, where thousands were there. We broadcast live from there as well. We travel around this country, and I'm telling y'all, we often are the only ones there on the dais covering this stuff. And so there's a whole bunch of people out here calling themselves New Black Media. They ain't never on the ground covering these events. We are. So when you support us with your resources, trust me, we're doing the good work with our staff. And in fact, just so y'all think, look, this is not just me. And so, we took a photo with the whole crew. So give me 1 second. I just want to show y'all this here. Just in case y'all be like, man, we just be seeing you. Nope. This was, of course, us on Saturday after the photos coming in. Give me a second. This was us on Saturday at the event there in D.C. We were on the ground covering with our folks. We had camera operators, folks doing social media, doing audio, producing, you name it. We were doing it. And so when you support us, this is what you're supporting. We got lots of plans. We're going to be in Atlanta on July 18th, broadcasting there. Labor union is doing some work trying to organize some workers. I just got word of the vice president when so I got to go to Dallas. First of all, I go to Ethiopia tomorrow. I'm there through February 8th, come back about 4 o'clock in the morning, then I turn around 12 hours later and fly to Dallas for the AK convention where I'm hosting the golf tournament. This is what we do. We are in the thick of it, and so we want to make sure that we're there getting the voices, you're hearing from them, and so when you support us, that's what happens. So you're checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered, PayPal or Martin Unfiltered, Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. We'll be right back.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Now streaming on the Black Star Network.
It was my junior year at Georgetown, and Spike calls me and he says, Malcolm, what are you doing next year? So, graduating, you know. He said, take a year off, work on Malcolm X. I said, okay.
But first of all, for the folks who don't know, Spike is
my cousin. Spike is my cousin.
Just for the person watching, like, how the hell is Spike just gonna tell you that
it's true? It's true.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the JODECI, that's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Michaela Adams disappeared from her Virginia Beach, Virginia home on May 12th. The 14-year-old is 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighs 180 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a green jean jacket, a long-sleeve camel shirt, and green sweatpants. She may have some scars on her arms. Anyone with information about Michaela Adams should call the Virginia Beach, Virginia Police Department at 757-385-5000, 757-385-5000. The two Fort Worth, Texas jailers accused of killing a black man in custody have been arrested. Rafael Marino and Joel Garcia are charged with the murder of Anthony Johnson Jr. On April 21st, Johnson got into a struggle with jailers during a routine check of his cell for contraband. The struggle was caught on video, and it shows Marino keeping his knee on Johnson's back and shoulders for more than a minute after he had been pepper sprayed and restrained. The Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office ruled Johnson's death was a homicide, listing mechanical and chemical asphyxia as his cause of death. Garcia was a supervisor at the time and recorded the incident on his phone. The sheriff's office says Garcia's actions delayed summoning medical help for Johnson. Marino and Garcia both posted bond and were released. The Texas highest criminal court says Governor Greg Abbott's pardon of a convicted murderer is constitutional. Travis County DA Jose Garza challenged the governor's pardon of Daniel Perry, a former Army sergeant who was convicted of murdering a Black Lives Matter protester in July 2020. Garza asked the Court of Criminal Appeals to review Abbott's pardon, arguing it ran afoul of the Texas Constitution. The court rejected that challenge. Perry was sentenced to 25 years in 2023 for killing Air Force veteran Garrett Foster. Perry, who was driving for Uber at the time, went into a planned protest downtown, got into an altercation with Foster, and shot him multiple times. Both men were armed and legally carrying their weapons under Texas law. Abbott argued Perry was within his rights to defend himself, citing the state's stand your ground laws, but Perry left out the racist writings of Perry and how he made clear that he had wanted to target black folks. Let's go to Georgia, where a federal judge has temporarily blocked parts of a Georgia law restricting organizations from helping people pay bail so they can be released while their criminal cases are pending. U.S. District Judge Victoria Calvert issued the 14-day stay on Section 4 of Senate Bill 63 to give both sides in the lawsuit time to argue over whether it should be stopped for the duration of the lawsuit. The American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia sued to stop the law from going into effect, alleging it is cruel and unconstitutional. The provision restricts charity organizations or individuals from helping pay their bail more than 3 times each year. Well, last month, we told you about the Bail Project, a national nonprofit that helps thousands of low-income people post bond. It announced that it was closing its Atlanta branch because of the law. Renita, this shows you right how the sheer stupidity of Republicans. It doesn't hurt anybody to have organizations that pays the bail of people. These are folks who are flat out evil, who are harmful, who do not like grace and mercy.
Well, and I agree, it is a sheer hypocrisy of Republicans, but I'm going to say for a different reason. So this all came about, and they passed this bill pretty quickly in the last legislative session because they were upset that protesters who have been protesting about Cop City were getting bailed out by organizations, and they really wanted to stop that. They also had a long track history of pretty much any dissent that would come up in Georgia, whether it be like planned civil disobedience or any of that stuff. They were just tired of basically progressives getting together to bail folks out where they were trying to keep them in jail. And so that's what this law was really about. When they passed this, I knew it would have constitutional challenges in court because basically the law says that no organization is able to bail out more than 3 people at a time. And as you mentioned, I think it talks about how many times you can bail someone out in a year. But at the end of the day, putting money towards bailing folks out is a type of speech. And people do have freedom of speech. And so at the time it passed, the immediate conflict I knew it would probably have is that on the one hand, you've had the Supreme Court say with Citizens United that putting money towards a cause or money is, where you spend your money is a form of freedom of speech. Okay, so then how can these bail funds, people giving money to bail folks out of jail, how is that not a type of speech? People are giving money and wanting these organizations to bail folks out because they are saying that they do not feel like people should be in jail for these issues. And so I knew that this was going to have an issue, and I'm glad to see this injunction because it is a completely unconstitutional law. And to your point, Republicans, very hypocritical. They pass bills all the time that they know are unconstitutional, but they don't care because they feel like, hey, all the time that it's in effect until we can go to court and the bill be found unconstitutional is all a win for us.
This is just crazy, and it goes to show you what you're dealing with, the punitive laws that Republicans pass when they have control, Julian, in these states, especially southern states.
We have to look at the economic underpinnings of this. When someone is in jail and they have to be bailed out, they don't have sufficient funds themselves. What's going on? The jail is making money. The person is not making money. Fast forward, organization chooses to help them by bailing them out. What's wrong with that? I mean, there's something very right about that. Why is someone going to be held? Some people who can't make bail are held for weeks, sometimes even months. And that makes no sense at all. But meanwhile, of course, the jail is making money. The county is making money. We have to really be clear about that. So it's not only is it mean-spirited, but it's predatory capitalism at its very worst. You've got people who are raising money. So I'm going to go into my funds and give this organization money to help bail people out. And bailing folks out around Cop City was nothing more than justice. Cop City was a horribly conceived idea. The community protested it. And this is just a reaction to people protesting. And we've seen the reactions to protesting that make no sense, but then make lots of sense. We see the laws that have been passed at the congressional level, at local levels, about people who are protesting and how the penalties for protesting have become greater. More time in jail, higher bail, higher fines. And so this is not surprising, and it's very consistent. Forgive me, Renita, I'm not talking about your state, but it's very consistent with what happens in Georgia and other southern states. Very, very consistent. And it's something that needs to be resisted because it really You ruin people's lives when you have them in jail. I have a young colleague who couldn't get bailed out, didn't call nobody, which was silly, and spent 4 months in jail, interrupting his doctoral program and a number of other things. I'm like, why didn't you call him back? He was ashamed, and he didn't do it. Eventually, they figured that out, but meanwhile, that's a chunk out of his life and some classes he has to take over.
On the Congo?
You know, this is consistent with what we're seeing, because we also see the laws that they're putting out to prevent people from helping people give them water or something to eat in line as it relates to people who are voting. They are anti-humanity, period, bottom line. And I think that even though many of these situations affect us disproportionately, particularly when we're talking about the justice system, this is also something that people need to be mindful of who are of different backgrounds, who should all be uniting to support this, because it's just a matter of time before it comes to them. Just like every other issue that affects Black people eventually ends up hurting white people, and in particular, whether we're talking about unemployment, COVID disparities, all of these things will eventually come to their communities. And so people who might have been part of poor communities, these are things that they should get around. But this idea, if they can sell this narrative, the folks who are against this policy continue to sell this narrative in some way, shape, or form that this is benefiting Black people, this just goes back to that Lyndon Johnson quote about, you know, as long as you can convince the poorest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't realize you're picking his pocket. Give him someone to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. This is inhumane. But this is not the only issue that we're seeing as it relates to this, but it's another example of how we should be on notice, because they don't want us to be able to experience any type of joy, any type of relief, or the ability, as Dr. Malveaux was saying, to actually be out and work and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, right? Isn't that what they say? The fact of the matter is, these are not convicted felons. Hey, Donald Trump, these are people who are awaiting trial, people who might actually be innocent of what they were arrested for, and they deserve an opportunity to be out and live their full life, just like those two officers you just talked about in the last segment who were able to get bailed out and are living their lives while they're waiting trial for murder.
Folks, let's go to Oklahoma, where Oklahoma teachers from the 5th through the 12th grade will now be required to incorporate the Bible into the curriculum as instructional support. On Thursday, the Oklahoma School Superintendent Ryan Walters sent a memo about this mandate. During a meeting, he explained why the Bible will be taught in state schools.
Today, regarding the Bible and the Ten Commandments. My staff has been looking at Oklahoma statute. We've been looking at Oklahoma academic standards. And it's crystal clear to us that in the Oklahoma academic standards, under Title 70, multiple occasions, the Bible is a necessary historical document to teach our kids about the history of this country, to have a complete understanding of Western civilization, to have an understanding of the basis of our legal system, and is frankly, when we're talking about the Bible, one of the most foundational documents used for the Constitution and the birth of our country. We also find major points in history that refer to the Bible, that reference the Bible. We see multiple figures, whether we're talking about the Federalist Papers, constitutional conventional arguments, and Martin Luther King Jr., who use it as a tremendous impetus for the civil rights movement and tie many of those arguments back to the Bible. It is essential that our kids have an understanding of the Bible and its historical context. So we will be issuing a memo today that every school district will adhere to, which is that every teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom to ensure that this historical understanding is there for every student in the state of Oklahoma in accordance with our academic standards and state law.
Oh, Julian, so let's quote Dr. King using the Bible, but in Oklahoma, let's not actually teach about Dr. King.
There you have it. I mean, this is such hypocrisy to, first of all, every classroom. So is the math teacher also going to be required to teach the Bible? Will the science teacher stop science experiments so they can have a biblical moment? This makes no sense at all. And the NEA and the AFT are challenging this, as is the ACLU. But these Bible thumpers, they can thump it, but they can't read it. And so you got them proselytizing. And there's no, I don't understand how this guy's getting away with this. Yeah, I do. He's a Republican right-winger who's making his point. It will probably be challenged, but until then, many teachers are going to have their licenses placed in jeopardy because they're saying if you don't do it, you may be fired. Now, in Oklahoma, a teacher's license is taken away on a case-by-case basis. So you can't say, I'm going to fire everybody who doesn't teach the Bible. You would have to go and say, Jane Jones didn't teach the Bible this semester, and then try to fire her. But that's very cumbersome, and it puts teachers on the defensive. It's inappropriate, unacceptable, but fully consistent with what we just saw with the Supreme Court, which we're seeing from the Republican Party. They are trying to take us back, not to the 20th century, to the 1950s. They're trying to take us back to the 1850s. But some of us ain't going.
Congo.
This is what a theocracy looks like. And so people talk about, some of these other countries around the world, these, Islamic states that are theocracies. This is what it looks like. Just substitute Islam for Christianity. And the reason why he's also doing this is because I'm sure he knows that this will eventually get to the Supreme Court, and he feels like this Supreme Court will side with him. And so we're going to be seeing more of that, just like with Louisiana and the Ten Commandments in the classroom. All of these cases are going to make it to the court because they feel like they have a friendly court on their side. And so this is another example today of, just like we talked about, no man's above the law or person's above the law, except now the president. And like Renita said, that was never always the case as it relates to wealthy people in terms of influence. But now we also just have to be mindful of this whole conversation about separation of church and state. People are actively trying to do that as well. And so,
Congo, got to cut you short. President Biden is now about to speak. Let's go live to the White House.
The presidency is the most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that can test your character. Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency. This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights, to taking away a woman's right to choose, to today's decision that undermines the rule of law of this nation. Nearly 4 years ago, my predecessor sent a violent mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We all saw it with our own eyes. We sat there and watched it happen that day. Attack on the police, the ransacking at the Capitol, a mob literally hunting down the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence. I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America. Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know the answer about what happened on January 6th before they are asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So now the American people will have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump. now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. You know, at the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, that defined the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, with today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all, and may God help preserve our democracy. Thank you. And may God protect our troops.
That was President Joe Biden moments ago speaking at the White House regarding today's Supreme Court decision that grants amazing powers to the president, essentially saying that he has immunity when it comes to official acts, but not unofficial, but they did not define what those were. Renita, your reaction to the president speaking?
Well, I'm glad that he broke it down in plain language what the ruling meant, because I think a lot of times these Supreme Court rulings can become convoluted for many people who don't. It's not that they don't know how to read English and don't understand English, but a lot, again, as I always say, families are trying to raise their kids and trying to take care of business. They don't have time to become an expert in government, and so I'm glad that he did break it down for people what this really means. I do think that many people are starting to see that, you know, the Supreme Court is certainly, as I said before, acting in ways of making decisions that benefit the majority on the court, which is a conservative majority, and less in an effort to hold up the Constitution, which is what they were sworn to do. So I think that that was a good showing by President Biden in just breaking down exactly what's going on with the Supreme Court.
Also important on Congo to keep going back to and reminding people January 6th, January 6th, January 6th.
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to speak on that as well, because he's actually campaigning on this, and he's using this as part of his campaign, as opposed to, you know, trying to sugarcoat it, saying, you know, oh, I respect democracy. No, these are real things that are happening. There's a man out there who wants to be a tyrant and a dictator, and President Biden is somebody who won't even pardon his own son. I mean, so just to talk about the stark differences as it relates to how people, one sees the rule of law versus the other, Biden has to keep campaigning on this, and those Democratic strategists and all that should be figuring out how to help keep democracy on the ballot as opposed to trying to get Biden off of it.
Julian?
This Supreme Court ruling gives Democratic strategists and others lots of room to set up hypotheticals, as Justice Sotomayor did. I mean, she laid it out. All these things are illegal. So I think President Biden, first of all, I appreciate his very strong showing. And as Renita said, he broke it down. This is what this is about. So we appreciate that. Secondly, I think that people have to take the ball and run with it now. And so what can the Orange Man do? Not only that, but in terms of the other cases, how does this affect some of the other cases? I mean, Jack Smith, I guess, can't talk because he's the prosecuting attorney, but someone needs to be talking for him about what this all means. But this ruling, as we've said earlier, is a blow, but the president is time enough for it. He came back in the way that we're expecting him to continue to come back as the campaign continues.
And plus, all the people who are whining, saying, why is the president speaking on this? Well, there you go. You know, they wanted him to speak this afternoon, so what do? You speak during prime time. Bigger audience. Makes a hell of a lot more sense. Hey, y'all, Steve Bannon lost all of his different appeals, and so he had to report to federal prison today. I love this here. While he was having, he had this little rally outside of the prison, and this is this fool and Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking. I just love this because remember when Peter Navarro kept having a news conference and the people behind him wouldn't let him talk? Yeah, they show up today. Gotta love them. Watch this.
Hopefully 10,000%. Look, folks, if it took me going to prison, remember, the reason I chose Danbury, I asked for Danbury for a very specific reason. Back in the only other person that's ever been sent to prison for a congressional subpoena, not going to a House subpoena, for contempt, held in contempt, was Rig Lardner Jr. Back in the 1940s, during the House Un-American Activity investigation, Columbia Studio fired him, because of his political beliefs. And then he was found guilty. They sent it to the DOJ. He was sent to prison. He was sent to this prison. That's why I requested Danbury, because there's no difference in his fight and in our fight. I'm a political prisoner of Nancy Pelosi. I'm a political prisoner of Merrick Garland. I'm a political prisoner of Joe Biden, the corrupt Biden.
I love it. And he was yelling, I'm a political prisoner. No, you just simply were an ass who chose not to testify before Congress. It was real simple. You could have done that and avoided prison, but no. So you chose to do so. I saw this one tweet that said, now that he goes to prison, he'll probably be made to take a bath. That was a good one. I was like, yeah, that was a good one right there. That was.
Because he doesn't look like he's bathed in a while.
You ain't lying. I swear that man wore the same clothes. All right, y'all. I am going to be, for the first time since 2007, I will not be attending Essence Festival. I will be headed to Ethiopia tomorrow. Go to my iPad, Anthony. The Arkwood African Film Marketing Awards Conference is taking place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And so July 5th through 6th. And so I head there with director Tim Reed. And so I am one of the guests of honor. So looking forward to interacting with a number of African filmmakers also. So with the conference, they're going to be live streaming some of that as well. And so we're going to be carrying that on the Black Star Network. And so we'll have guest hosts for a couple of days. I'll try to hop on, but I think when we're live, it's something like 1 or 2 a.m., maybe 3 a.m. in Ethiopia. I don't know. So we'll see. But I'll try to make that happen. So I'll be, of course, shooting lots of stuff while I'm there. And so looking forward to that. And so we'll be making that trip to Ethiopia. And so we'll definitely still be in good hands. Then, of course, I come back July 8th. And then immediately turn around and go to Dallas for the AKA convention, where I'll be there for a couple of days as well. So lots of stuff happening. Let me thank Renita Omakongo and Julian for being on today's show. Thank you so very much for being on today's panel. Folks, that's it. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Y'all know how important it is because we're doing stuff other folks are not doing. They choose to ignore it every single day, but we're fighting a good fight. Of course, operating in the spirit of Ida B. Wells Barnett, Frederick Douglass, and so many other pioneers of the black press. And so that is covering the stuff that matters to you. And so we want you to support our work. First of all, on YouTube, y'all should be hitting that like button, y'all. We should be, let's get to 2,500 likes. Okay, we got almost 5,000 folks live right now. So let's hit that like button before I get off. So here's how you can support the work that we do. And I'm telling y'all, I was on a call today with an advertising agency. It is not easy. We see a lot of these ads running on Fox News, but they always saying, oh, no, it's brand safety. And we're like, but y'all run ads over there, but you can't run ads over here. Happens all the time. So your support matters. This is what our goal is. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. We've got folks who, I'll just show y'all, did I bring it with me? We got folks, let me go over here. We got folks who support us every single day. Today, we got these, literally, I had to sign all of these checks and money orders. because these are the folks who say, hey, I'm not doing electronic, and so I sign all of these, and so it's real. And so we got people support our work, and trust me, we're doing the stuff that nobody else is doing. When I say no one is doing what we're doing, this is no lie. Byron Allen's The Griot canceled all of their shows except one. None of their daily news shows, they're all gone, all right? Black Enterprise, nope. Blavity, nope. Essence, nope. Ebony, nope. None of these folks are doing what we're doing. A daily news show, multiple shows that speak to our issues when it comes to our community. And so your support is critical. Again, if 20,000 of our fans contribute $50 each, that's $1 million. Now, I'm sitting here, some of the people, I see 50, I see 100, I see $10, I see $25, I see $10, $100, $15, I can go $35, $10, $5. Hey, every single dollar absolutely matters. That's important to raise $1 million. What we do, folks, it costs $195,000 a month. That's studio space, that's our live streaming equipment, that's our staff, that's everything. Insurance, this studio space, you name it. We got to buy new equipment, stuff breaks, you name it, we got to do that. And so we're doing, again, the work that nobody else is doing. And so your support is critical. We've had some, and Keenan, send me the updated number. I think since we launched September 4th, 2018, we've had something like 26,000 donors. And so we are greatly appreciative of the people that will support our work. So please, send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We've got folks who give right there on YouTube. We appreciate that. We prefer you give to us directly. That way, 100% of those proceeds go right to us. And look, when you give to the show, that money goes right back into the show. When you get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, all proceeds go right back into the show. And so I got a fee from the publisher as well as from Audible. That money goes right back into the show. And so you can get the book as well. And that'll support what we do. And let me just shout out to the folks who gave during the show. Kevin Lindquist, Alan Whitaker, Josephine Turner, Karen Wallace, Anthony Lawson, Erica George, Claudia Douglas Smith, Alan Whitaker, Mark Abrams, let's see here, Jennifer Nickerson Turner, also Levine Hearn, Aisha Bam, Samuel Taylor, Deborah Ganter, Doris Dixon, Sukari Johnson, Angie Amore, Willie McCoy, Mary Young, Nicole Smith, Sharon Norwood, Joan Warren, Yeldell, Kavan Shelton, Matthew Folson, Sheila Norward, Joan Cooper, Marlene Abair, Streety, Randy McDonald, Cynthia Coleman, Samuel Young, Margarita, Kenya, Adia, Kimberly Stackhouse, Tracy Collins, Lady Tasha, Jamal Graham, Amber Woodhouse, Dietrich Bragg, Alicia Thornwell, Sheldon Williams, Callie Greer, Philip Patterson, Yoko Jones, Valerie Williams, Lena Casey, Kenrick Burke, Sherlyn Carrington, and Anita Nickens and Jessica Wimbush. And so we appreciate all of y'all who support this show. Thank you so very much, folks. We appreciate all the work. I will see y'all when I get back from the motherland. Y'all know how we always end the show. Black Star Holla! Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?